See, the answer isn't to take each other for granted and to veg out until your marriage is ruined and then you go work hard to get another one. Work hard for the one you have right now.
And it's you and me, babe, whatever comes. Knowing bigger hands are holding ours, and the greatest days are ahead of us. Growing in love, learning to be a better us.
Welcome to A Better Us, and welcome to our home.
So I was pondering the other day.
Okay.
Adam and Eve must have had a great marriage.
Oh, really? And why is that?
Well, because Adam couldn't talk about his mother's cooking, and Eve couldn't mention all the men she could have married.
You were thinking about that, were you?
I was, actually. And then I also wondered, when they argued, would Adam have said something like, "Watch it, there are plenty more ribs where you came from."
Okay, maybe it's time to stop pondering. But actually, you're on the right track, because if we want to learn some marriage lessons from the Garden of Eden, that's exactly what Jimmy Evans is talking about today.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Also, did you know that research shows that 69% of what couples argue about are the same things over and over and over again?
That's right. That goes for both happy and unhappy couples. But marriage teachers Neil and Sharol Josephson are here to explain how the happy couples handle their conflict differently.
And as usual, chiming in on these topics, we have our kitchen couples, CFL football legend Mike Pinball Clemens and his wife Diane, and youth and children's pastors Eric and Kara Maines.
Everybody's ready, so let's get started.
Well, marriage is work, and Jesus said in Matthew 19, and he's quoting the Old Testament, he said, "For this cause a man will leave his father and mother and cleave unto his wife, and they two shall become one flesh." And three simple secrets of a successful marriage is: first, make it a priority. For this cause a man will leave his father and mother. Your father and mother, before you get married, that's your most important blood bond. And so when you get married, they have to be second. You have to reprioritize everything. Children, parents, nothing is as important as our marriage rather than Jesus himself. And so you have to make it a priority in real terms. Golf almost destroyed my marriage early on. And I would say with my mouth that I loved my wife and she came first, but reality was golf was before her. Many people put their children before their spouse. It's devastating. And you say, I hear people say, well, I live for my children. That's very short-sighted, because children are a temporary project. They come and go. They're going to leave home one day. But your marriage should last for a lifetime. And how are your children going to succeed in marriage if you don't show them how? The first thing you should do for your kids is lead them into an understanding and acceptance of Christ. The second thing that you should do is teach them how to succeed in life, beginning with marriage. You're their example. You're their trainer. And so you have to make marriage first. You have to, and most of the things that attack the priority of marriage aren't bad things. They're good things out of priority. Work is taking too much time and attention. Church is taking too much time and attention. The kids are taking too much time and attention. God is first, our marriage is second, our children are third. Marriage, except for Christ, is the most important priority in our lives. So prioritize it. Number two, you have to work at it. It says, for this cause a man will cleave unto his wife. That means work. That means energy. It means energetically pursue. Marriage only works when you work at it. A lot of people, we pursue each other. We work our faces off, pursuing each other and dating. And guess what? We fall in love. We fall in love because we're putting so much energy into it. And then once we get married, we begin to take each other for granted. And we literally resent having to work at it. And then we wonder why it's not working. And so when you're not working at your marriage, it doesn't work. And changing people, divorcing and remarrying, that's not the answer. I saw a guy one day that I did business with. I was working in our family business, and he sold us television advertising. And this is a kind of a normal guy, just kind of a normal looking, maybe 45-year-old guy. And one day he walked into our store to sell us some advertising. And I greeted him, and he had lost 20 pounds, and he was just well-groomed, well-dressed. I wouldn't say he was just a total slob before, but he was a, semi-slob. And he walked in, and I said, "Man, you're looking good." And he said, "Well, I'm divorced." I said, "What?" He said, well, you can't get a woman if you don't look good. And I was thinking to myself, so for a total stranger, he's going to all this trouble and effort, but he wouldn't do it for his wife. No wonder he lost his marriage. See, the answer isn't to take each other for granted and to veg out until your marriage is ruined and then you go work hard to get another one. Work hard for the one you have right now. You have to work at your marriage. I've been married for 44 years. I still work at my marriage every day. Marriage is work. Number 3, share everything. It has to be a priority. You have to work at it. They two shall become one. And what it means is marriage is about sharing. You don't dominate. The number one thing that violates the oneness of marriage is dominance. Most people were raised in a home where one of their parents was dominant over the other. When I do marriage conferences, and I've done marriage conferences all over the world for many, many years, I've asked a question, and I asked it last weekend in Tulsa, Oklahoma. How many of you were raised in a home where one of your parents was clearly dominant over the other parent? Immediately, 2/3 of the hands go up, immediately. And then I asked the second question, how many of you who just raised your hands believe that dominance had a negative effect over your parents' marriage and the family? Every hand goes right back up. Sharing everything means no one controls, no one dominates. We're partners. We treat each other as equals. If this is a corporation, we both have equal amount of stock. And dominance is a gender neutral issue. There's just as many dominant women as there are dominant men. We have to respect each other. We have to share everything, praying and making our decisions together, allowing each other to complain without paying a price. Marriage is first, marriage is work, and marriage is about sharing. If you do those 3 things that Jesus said in Matthew 19, that God's Word says in Genesis 2:24, your marriage will work.
Well, we're here in the kitchen with Mike and Diane, Eric and Kara, and Jimmy Evans. That's some good stuff there. Just 3. I like just 3 points because it's easy for me to kind of grab onto and think about. But all based on Genesis 2 passage there. A man shall leave his father and mother, shall cleave to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So 1, 2, 3. Priorities? Yeah.
I'm sorry, honey. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, thank you. No. So I'm trying to remember because I just heard those 3. So priorities.
Yeah.
And then energy, putting energy into it, working at it.
Yeah.
And then oneness and sharing.
Okay,
There
so
we go.
what I was going to say was I love the insight he gave, like the whole cleave thing. You hear about that, leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife.
Yeah.
Cleave actually means, in the original language, to actively pursue. Cleave. So you're not only have you left that relationship, meaning that you've disconnected from the priority of your parents in your life as that, not that you disconnected from your parents. But that you're actually actively pursuing your spouse.
Putting energy into it, because that cleave idea, because it's used elsewhere in the Old Testament, that same word where it talks about a man who cleaved to his sword. He was a warrior, and he had to hold on to that thing tightly. So that's putting energy into it.
I like that.
If you just kind of relax, you're not going to do very well in the battle. But cleaving energy. But number 1 is priority.
Yeah.
So maybe we can kick around this idea of priority, because other things are good in life, but he said good things out of priority mess things up.
Well, for me, this is when we talk about a successful marriage and we want a successful marriage, this goes back to the sports again. I'm sorry. But it's the coach, right? And it's practicing the fundamentals. This is what it is, right? You still, when you have pro hockey players still start with the skate. They warm up, right? They exercise, and then there are some skill things that they do in terms of practicing and getting ready game after game. Even though they're professionals and they're paid a lot of money, every day there are fundamentals that they do. And this is practicing the fundamentals of a successful marriage. It is prioritizing your bride, right? It is making sure that we put her first in all we do, and make sure that she's first, and then we put effort into it. Effort leads to excellence, right? Effort leads to excellence, and then finally sharing everything. And so the fundamentals, practicing the fundamentals, we can't go over them enough.
That's right.
And we remember that. We know that. I mean, we know the fundamentals, but sometimes we have to remind ourselves, you guys,
Exercise
of the fundamentals.
Yeah. For me specifically, I It's from different influences in my life. I learned that the man was to be the head of the household. And I just recently am getting to know better what that actually means, because in my mind that was like I'm the one that has the final decision and I'm the one with the control. But this sharing everything mentality means that I have to also share control, where I have to go from the head of the household, meaning I'm in control, to being the head of the household, meaning like I am the main protector of my family. But when it comes to big decisions, it comes to our relationship, we actually need to share that control, and that's something that I am learning right now.
That's right. No, it's good. And it's about prioritizing like your spouse's opinions on things too. Like, so instead of being the head of the household and just making all these decisions, but saying, okay, but what would work with my wife too? Or what would work with my husband? Because the truth is, it's buying a new TV without your spouse, or buying a new cell phone or a car or a house or whatever it may be, isn't worth coming between us. It's not worth it, because all of those things will fade away, but this will remain, and this is what we're supposed to prioritize. This is what we're supposed to protect.
And I think it's important too that we keep talking about, you know, the guys, but for women, for us women, we have to realize as well, right, that we have to help our husbands, right? We are their helpmate, and it's not just on them to, you know, make sure that they prioritize the marriage. It's up to us as wives to make sure that that happens as well, and to help guide them as well.
We took a little test, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah, before we got married, part of our marriage counseling, there were 5 things that were listed, and amongst them was God, your spouse, friends, children, and they asked us to prioritize these 5 things. That's only 4 of them, but they asked us. And so I said God and then my bride. My bride said God and then our children.
I was
yes. But
before you got married.
Yes. But I'm okay with that even today, right? Well, God says we probably should kind of do it the other way, but I understand that motherly instinct, right?
Well, it's like Jimmy Evans said, though, a lot of times the good is the enemy of the best. The good kind of gets in the way of prioritizing what's best.
That's right.
And caring for our kids is good, absolutely. As a mother, we understand that. But putting our husbands before our children actually is the best.
Yeah.
Because then we're better equipped to look after those kids
And we have to
build
learn
into
that,
those.
because a lot of times we don't get that, right?
I love
And
that.
the sharing everything, you had mentioned about you know, the idea of just kind of getting a new understanding of what it means to be a head of the household, or to be the person that God calls you to be, because we're told, you know, the Apostle Paul talks about it in Ephesians 5, to love your wife as Christ loved the church. And so that type of leadership means you're sacrificial, you're giving, you're thinking of the other person first. You know, Christ sacrificed everything for his church. And so it's a whole different idea of leadership, that you're responsible for the well-being of the home, and that means the well-being of your wife first, putting her needs before your own. And that kind of turns you know, being a head or a leader right upside down, because it's a servant leader, and that's the way Jesus is.
Yeah, and that's good stuff. And that's really how you become a better us. It's keeping those priorities right and following God's word on how to have a good marriage.
All right, good discussion, guys. And so stay with us. We are going to be back in the kitchen in just a little bit.
There's no correlation between conflict and couples who divorce. There is, however, a strong correlation between the habitual avoidance of conflict and divorce.
Hi, we hope you're enjoying the show.
You know, our vision at A Better Us is to see every marriage become a loving union that creates a safe family haven, building a legacy of hope for future generations.
That's why we feel it's so important to invest in marriage relationships through producing a new episode of A Better Us every week.
Absolutely. If you feel as we do that marriages are worth investing in, then please consider joining us as a member of A Better Us with a monthly donation of $25.
You'll be making a big difference in lives and families, and we'll send you 2 of our special mugs, the mugs that you see our kitchen couples using each program.
Absolutely. And be sure to send us your mugshot selfie, and we'll post it on our Facebook page and on our website.
Simply visit abetterus.tv and click donate to set up your automatic monthly giving. And God bless you, and thank you so much for making this program possible and helping us strengthen marriages.
So we can all become a better us.
Do you seem to have the same argument over and over and over? Do the same issues keep coming around again? They do for us.
The Gottman Institute does fantastic relationship research, and one of the things they've learned is that unhappy couples say that 69% of their conflict is over these perpetual things, the same things over and over. Do you know what they found out about happy couples? They have conflict as well, and they said 69% of their conflict is over perpetual issues. Isn't that amazing? Both happy and unhappy couples say the same thing. The difference is how they handle the conflict.
Problem is, a lot of us don't know how to handle conflict. We've never learned how. Some of us grew up in families where healthy conflict was never modeled, or we're just naturally inclined to avoid conflict, or actually we could be afraid of it. But here's the thing, the Gottman Institute also discovered, as they monitored couples over decades, that there's no correlation between conflict and couples who divorce. There is, however, a strong correlation between the habitual avoidance of conflict and divorce. We've seen that ourselves. We worry way more about the couples who aren't fighting than the couples who are, because conflict can be really healthy.
Have you ever heard of a controlled burn? It's a phrase from forest fire management. Controlled burns are these small fires that are deliberately set so they clean up the debris on the forest floor. Conflict can be like that in a marriage. Having hard, honest, respectful, but sort of bounded fights is a good tactic. If we have controlled burns, we can get rid of all kinds of junk and it won't build up, and the next small spark of conflict won't burn down the whole house. You know what I mean? Two simple things can really help keep these controlled burns under control. And the first one's this. Remember, you're not in a competition. You're not trying to defeat your spouse. Marriage is the only game in town. You either both win or you both lose. Remember this, your spouse is not your enemy.
Second thing, learn to go after the issue, not each other. So picture yourself sitting across the table from each other, sort of like this. The thing you're fighting over is like a big old pile in the middle of the table, and you see it from this perspective, your partner sees it from their perspective. Now, picture yourself coming around the table. The issue hasn't changed. It's still this big old mess, but now you're seeing it from the same perspective. It's not your issue or my issue, it's our issue, and we're going to tackle it together.
Conflict is inevitable. It's normal. It's actually even healthy when it's a controlled burn. When we were researching this, we discovered that some plants only grow in the forest after a fire. And there are some types of pine cones that only open up under extreme heat. You see how good things can come from fire, from conflict. Conflict done well, hard, honest, respectful, bounded, it can bring beauty and life and deeper intimacy to our marriages.
We are back in the kitchen with Mike and Diane, Eric and Kara, and conflict. I know several times over the first 3 seasons of A Better Us, we've been dealing with conflict as a topic. It just seems to come up a lot because it seems to come up a lot in marriage, doesn't it? And so Neil and Sharol, though, it's nice to hear different perspectives from different teachers. They had some great points there. But the idea of that research is that like 69% it's the same thing, they're rehashing over and over and over. And that's the same for happy and unhappy couples. The difference, they say, is how you handle that conflict.
And that goes back to, your attitude when you're coming into this place where you've got to talk about something or something's happened and you're kind of doing this. How do you enter into that conversation? Are you already up here and the temperature's already, and so your spouse is automatically going to match you up here? Or are you calm? What kind of tone of voice do you use? Are you calm and loving? There's so much to think about with that.
Please, you.
I know for me, when we were first married, our first few years of marriage, I struggled with this because I didn't like conflict. I didn't like that idea of having to, plead my case or anything like that. And as we all know, my husband is very well spoken and very opinionated, and it was hard for me to be able to communicate how I felt. right? So I would hold so much stuff in, right? And it would just build up. And then I would get so angry with him because he could just articulate whatever he had to say. And I'd be like, trying to get it out. And then, I walk away still not being able to get out what I needed to say. And I was angry. I was mad. And that resentment just continued to build up until I finally had to figure out, how can I get him to understand, help me be able to communicate what I need to say to you. Right? And a lot of times in a lot of marriages, that's the case. There's one person that's very opinionated that can get their case out and, they're done, they're good. And you struggle trying to say what you need to say because you're tiptoeing around trying, I don't really want to hurt his feelings, but I need to say this, or, so it's a struggle, it's a battle. And until you learn how to communicate, it will be a battle.
And that was as much my struggle as it was hers, because I needed to pick up on the fact that she couldn't communicate and she was still frustrated, and I wasn't communicating enough to understand that, right? Yeah. So I got my point out, and so I just want people to know, right, that we all struggle. Yeah. We all go through it, and the statistics say that it's okay. And the real challenge is not when you're struggling, is when you're not. Right? Is when you're not trying to fight to get it better, but we learn how to navigate that better. Yes, right? So as a coach, I used to tell our guys, listen, we all gonna struggle sometimes. We're gonna have challenges. Absolutely. You know what it means if you got no challenge? You're dead. So it's better than the alternative. So it's not that whether we're going to have challenges, how we navigate them. And so,
yeah, I love the way they put it, where they separated the issue from, like, it's not because you're wrong, it's not because I'm wrong. It's they separate the issue, put it in the middle of the table, and then it's us versus the issue, and go around the table and be next to your partner, looking at that issue. And sometimes you just need to go from a different starting point. If it's a conflict that keeps coming up, maybe you should change your tactic and come from a different starting point. And maybe even that means praying about it together, and but not specifically praying, saying like, God help my spouse see it my way. But like maybe praying specifically for yourself about it. God help me to understand how we need to work through this.
Yeah, and her point of view.
That's right.
Help me to see it through her eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes things, God will help you to, might reveal things that are below the surface that you're saying, okay, here's the real issue is down here. There's something, there's a feeling of insecurity, or there's something that that just kind of manifests in this more seemingly trivial thing up here. And so, prayer is a fantastic way to do it the right way.
And I appreciate the fact that he said that couples who have conflict are normal. Like, don't think, well, okay, we can't have any conflict because then that means we've got a bad marriage. No, talk it out. Get it out. Because like you said, Diane, we all have conflict.
We do.
We all have those moments where we just butt heads, and it's hard for me to see it his way, and he's hard, but just kind of take a breath and say, okay, we got to talk this out.
And understanding that it's not a competition.
Exactly.
We're on the same team. And I had to learn that too. Yeah. It was like we were competing, like, I'm going to win this argument, right? Or he won again. I wasn't able to get what I needed to say out. But we're on the same team. It's not a competition.
Because if there's a winner and a loser, as we've heard, you've both
together.
lost.
You're not one.
You've
That's
both
right.
lost because you've damaged the marriage.
Absolutely.
little coaching points too. I started out trying to help her win. When I got the philosophy right, I said, this is my queen. She's number one. The queen's got to win this one, right? And I didn't tell her that, right? But I had to change my own philosophy.
It's all about how you approach it. It's so good. All right.
All right. Well, I think we're just about at the end of the time, but we will be back to wrap things up. Thanks, everyone. Great discussion.
Stay with us.
Well, this is a serious question, right? I mean, any couple that has walked through this difficult season knows just how treacherous it is. So, is there hope? First of all, let me say it flat out. Absolutely, there is hope, and we've seen it time and time again.
Yeah, but the hope rests on the commitment of both the betrayed spouse and the betraying spouse to take part in shared ownership of mending the relationship. So they have to both be all in. So if you find yourself in that situation, you have to understand that there's work to do on both sides of that equation, on forgiving, on humility, on taking ownership, and on finding your rhythm together again.
And it takes time. This is not something you just turn on and, oh yeah, let's do this, we're fine. You know, this is going to be a real process that we go through, several stepping stones.
Here's the truth though, when you've gone through something that jolting to your marriage and you stick with it and you both decide we're gonna take ownership and come out on the other side of this, the kind of love you have for each other after that is so far exceeding and transcending anything you've experienced before. So don't think that you'll never have it good again. Honestly, you have the opportunity to have it the best you have ever experienced it after you go through that hard thing.
And we've seen it time and time again. That kind of analogy is really true. That broken bone, when it's mended, is stronger there than it was before it was broken. And the same can be true in your relationship.
Hey friends, Ron and Ann here. We're so glad you're with us at A Better Us, and we pray your marriage is blessed as you take this in.
Be sure and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and enjoy this video. Today's program has given us a lot to take in, from how to have a successful marriage to how to respond to inevitable conflict with your spouse.
That's right. I really liked what Sharol Josephson said when he said marriage is the only game in town where you either both win or you both lose.
Right.
We're on the same team, we're on the same side of the table, and the conflict is something we face together.
And then Jimmy Evans helped us discover some keys to a successful marriage that God laid out in the very first book of the Bible. It's amazing how the Bible provides down-to-earth principles for marriage that can apply to our lives today.
That's right. Perhaps you'd like to learn more about how God's ancient book can speak to you today, right where you are, and especially how you can enter into a personal relationship with the God of the Bible through the person of Jesus.
That's a relationship that affects not only your eternity, but it will also have the greatest positive impact on your life and marriage today.
If you have any questions or just need someone to pray with you about your marriage, please give our prayer line a call.
It's there on the screen. It's available 24/7, free of charge, and our team would love to pray with you.
Thanks again for stopping by. And remember, with God, there is always hope to become a better us.
Hey friends, we really hope you're enjoying the marriage conversations here with A Better Us on our YouTube channel.
We have hundreds of more helpful marriage videos designed to give you hope and tools to make your marriage better.
And you can see just a few options we think you might like here and here.
Enjoy! Oh, and make sure you subscribe by clicking here so you don't miss out on all the great marriage help we have coming your way soon.